I try to let these guys know, hey man, there's not a lot of people your age who are diving into healthcare right now, who are diving off into all these different things that you can learn. And you've got a really, really wild opportunity to
Yeah.
be one of the very few in the next 5 to 10 years. So
Yeah.
if you can just work hard and learn a lot, be willing to learn and work hard, the possibilities are endless in healthcare.
There's a major crisis facing healthcare facilities management. We have aging employees, aging buildings, and aging infrastructure. We've created the Healthcare Facilities Network, a content network designed specifically to help solve for these three pressing issues in healthcare facilities management. We bring on thought leaders and experts from across healthcare facilities management, all the way from the C-suite to the technician level, because at the end of the day, we're all invested in solving the aging issue. Thanks for tuning in. Look at our videos. You will find that as a theme across our content. This is the Healthcare Facilities Network. I'm your host, Peter Martin. I am happy and pleased to be joined by today's guest, Steven Atkins. Steven is the Director of Facilities Management. Where, Steven?
It's at Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare, Memphis, Tennessee.
So Steven and I practiced that beforehand. As I said to Steven, as a guy from the Northeast, the Le Bonheur, I couldn't quite figure that out. So Steven, thank you for jumping in and fielding that one for me.
Sure.
You have a big facility. What's the size of your facility, Steven?
We're about 1.8 million of healthcare space, and then maybe 3 million square foot total. 26-acre campus, about 6 different buildings here.
So you've got a big footprint. You're in a good sized city. I like Memphis. We used to go there when Memphis was in Conference USA long ago, and they played at the Pyramid. We used to go to the Conference USA tournament. Had a great time in Memphis. But how do you got a big place, you got an important role, you have a growing family. How do you find your work-life balance? What do you do to stay centered?
Oh wow. I'll tell you, it all comes back to the team that I work with here at Methodist University. I stepped into a really, really strong team with a lot of veteran guys who have really strong skill sets and have taught me a lot in my time here. And having that team and that what I don't like to call them old. They get mad at me because we call them seasoned, you know. But having that team really allows me to come and go and do the things that I need and rest assured that this place is being taken care of, the way it should. So having a really good team helps a lot. And then I think in the almost 3 years that I've been here, we've established really good processes. So those processes just kind of carry, right? And if I'm not here, our team knows the process. We follow our protocols and move forward, and there's less stress involved when you can do that. This is healthcare. We have stress every day, but
Right.
having protocols and processes has really helped us to kind of give me some ease of mind and make it back home every day to my family. I'm 2 hours from work,
Oh, wow.
so I
Two
drive two
hours
hours.
both ways?
That's correct. Yeah. So
Wow.
I'm up early, like 4 in the morning. I drive to Memphis. I'm here by 6:30. Try to leave here by 2 or 3 every day and back home by 5. So um, I couldn't do that if we didn't have the really, really awesome team that we have and the processes that we have in place. So just it's been a blessing to me all the way around.
Yeah, that, 4 hours certainly adds a lot of time to your day.
Yeah,
You
yeah, it
must
does.
burn up the phone, I guess, going home. Does
Yeah,
it
I
stop
do. So
ringing?
I've actually been able to schedule a lot of calls on my drive home every day, which has been beneficial. So even though my workday here ends at 2:30 or 3 every day, I'm typically on the phones till almost 5 o'clock every day when I get home. But that's okay. That's part of my role, and I'm happy to fulfill those tasks.
Yeah, yeah. So, one of the goals, as I said, for the Healthcare Facility Network is to increase the pipeline of potential facility employees into the field. And you, as we were starting to email back and forth, you have a really eclectic career path into healthcare facilities management. I found that when I was just doing the recruiting with Goslin Martin before coming over to CREF, I'd always try to look at people's career paths and figure out all right, how did they end up where they got? Does it, and usually it's not linear, right? Usually there are twists and turns and curves, and nothing ever goes really the way it's supposed to, or few things do. But even with that said, your career path is just interesting to me. I don't know that I've seen anybody with this one. History teacher, HVAC technician, business owner for Atkins Construction, owner of self-serve laundromat and a car wash. And with all that, and I think you might have a couple other things that I've missed, a dad, a husband. With all
Yeah.
that, how did you end up as a director of facilities management? How did that turn into this?
Man, like you said, it's been a very curvy road to get to where I'm at. But if I had to, draw it all back to one thing, it's hard work and common sense. Those two things have paid off for me. They've prevailed in everything that I've done. I grew up, my family owned a local construction company in a small town, and we owned a parts store for, electrical, plumbing, air conditioning. And from a young age, I worked for my dad in the parts store, and then I worked for my dad in the service business doing construction. And I learned really early in life that you had to be a problem solver. You had to go out and figure things out. So while I worked in construction, I didn't really like construction as a younger guy because it was I don't know, just wasn't where I wanted to land. I wanted to be a teacher and an educator and a coach. So graduated from high school, and throughout my college years, I helped coach at the local high school there. It's like a graduate assistant. Went to college, got a degree in education, and I taught for 2 years. And I was like, golly, this is not going to support the lifestyle that I want to live. While I love kids and love coaching, I got out and went back into construction. And a few years into construction on my own, uh, I had an accident working at a Cooper Tire. Uh, I had a big machine that fell on my foot and cut half of my right foot off,
Oh,
and
wow.
it kind of it landed me in a it landed me in like a light duty scenario where I was working for the company coming back off of my injury, and it was a staffing company, and that staffing company actually had me going around making calls, helping to help other people get staffed. While I was helping other people get staffed, I noticed jobs that were open, and I happened to find one in a nursing home. And when I got to that nursing home, I walked in one day. I was going to interview, and they was like, "Hey, you must be here to interview for the maintenance job." And I was like, "Well, no, I was coming to see if you had a job." She's like, "No, you're the guy. Come on." So we walked in, and I interviewed, and I ended up getting the job, and that's kind of where my healthcare career began. From there, I met some really good people at local hospitals and a healthcare coalition there who helped me get into the hospital world. And then from once I got into a hospital local in Mississippi, a year or so in, I got an opportunity here in Memphis that I just couldn't turn down. And like I said, that's a long, curvy road to get to where I'm at. But at the end of everything, it's been hard work, common sense. Those two things have helped me prevail. And I'm thankful for the years I had as a younger guy. My dad pushing me out there, making me do all the things he did. I didn't see it then, but it's really paid off here in my later in my career.
Yeah. Well, your construction background certainly had to help transitioning into the healthcare facilities management.
Certainly, yeah, yeah. So we were in the residential world. A lot of times in a small community, that's what you do. But it's base knowledge that I was able to apply. And as I got into the giant world of hospitals and commercial and industrial type settings, I had a lot to learn, but I had enough base knowledge that I could continue to learn on top of what I already knew. So that was helpful.
Yes. Yes. Can I ask, sorry to hear about your foot. What machine fell on your foot?
There was we had a big it was essentially like a big bowl that carried a big chunk of rubber up and down an incline. And we were working on the incline. We locked it out and tagged it out. And when we if you see my hand right here, kind of like that, we were standing there working on this bowl of sorts. And when we took a bolt loose, there was a weld broken around the bottom of the bowl, and the bottom of the bowl slid out, even
Oh,
though we had it locked out. And my foot happened to be on a track there that it was sliding on, and just kind of cut it off.
oh man. Oh, I'm sorry to
Yeah,
hear that.
yeah.
Oof.
We've been waiting on it to grow back, but they hadn't grown back yet. So maybe they
Wow.
will.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. Because it's kind of trite. What do you say? I mean,
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, it's been an absolute 100% blessing and a turnaround for me in my life because I landed in healthcare. And, regardless of whether the accident, what it did to my foot, I was kind of determined and hardworking, and I wasn't going to let that kind of, define my career trajectory.
yeah.
And I was able to, I really have a passion for safety and making sure people are doing things the right way. And, so it kind of, it steered me into a direction that I probably wouldn't be here today had that not have happened. So, unfortunate at the time, but looking back on it, it's been a blessing all the way around.
Oh, what a great way to look at it. And you're right. I mean, it just goes to show, and people deal with it every day. You go to work every day, and you can be safe and do all the right things, but at the end of the day, there's no guarantee, right? I mean,
That's right.
sometimes it's just the unfortunate luck of the draw.
Yeah, it takes you. Well, it really teaches you not to take anything for granted, and everything's an opportunity. You just got to look at it that way. So
Yes. Yeah. Did so did that injury did that increase not your awareness, but that increase your desire for this type of a career?
yeah, yeah, it did. I mean, that was my first real touch of industrial type work. Like I said, I'd always been in residential. I was learning a lot in the short time that I was there, and then the injury was like, kind of a gut punch.
Yeah.
You're learning a lot, things are going good, and then you can't do it anymore because of your injury. So I kind of got hungry for more of it, wanted to learn more, wanted to know why things happened the way they did, and understand more about it. And definitely that was part of the fuel. And you have a lot of people that are somewhat doubtful that you'll ever return or you'll make it back. They told me it would be like 2 years before I would walk again. And I was like, nah, nah, that's not me. So 4 months later, I got a job and I was
Oh,
working. So it's
wow.
it's just um, prove people wrong, and it was a momentum boost for me. As weird as that sounds, you kind of knock down, but it's to get back up and keep going. And to be honest, most people don't know or can't tell. I don't limp or anything like that. So I just let it go and roll on, and life's been good to me ever since.
That's great. Can I ask you, I don't want to I don't want to perseverate or say that, but like so they said 2 years, it took you 4 months. Did you do that through through did you have to go through PT like how did you accelerate it to that extent?
My foot stayed wrapped for 3.5 months, and they told me once we unwrapped it, we could start PT, but it would take me a long time to get my balance back and be able to walk good. And as soon as I was able to do PT, uh, we went to PT, and then when PT was over, I went to a walking track, and I kind of taught myself how to walk again. And there were lots of things you had to do to like desensitize my foot so that it would, so that the nerve endings weren't as in touch with everything.
You said hard work and common sense. There's a great example of hard work, right?
That's right.
Most definitely. But common sense and interesting. Coming in to healthcare facilities management, you were a teacher, so I'm sure you saw a lot of lack of common sense dealing with parents and some over the top reactions and all. My wife's in education, so she tells me the stories that you can hear. But like, what's an example? Can you give me an example of something like within healthcare facilities? Because you did come in with a new eye. Like, was there something that you saw that just didn't make common sense? Because I think we lose common sense a lot these days, and sometimes you need to take a step back. But is there an example of something that you saw and you're like, man, that doesn't make sense to me. Why do they do that?
Yeah, yeah. So it's hard to pinpoint one exact thing, but you come into a lot of situations, especially for me when I came into Memphis, and this is a big place. They've been running very well without me, but you come in and you start to see you notice different processes that they're doing, and how can we change those? And I catch myself in a big room full of executives, and we're talking about our emergency management plan and how we're going to roll out our response to certain things. And I, when I first stepped in, I questioned myself a lot, especially as
Hmm.
a young guy early in healthcare. I questioned myself a lot. It's like, I feel like I'm thinking the right thing, but sometimes I'm hesitant to ask it because I'm in here with such high level people. And I feel like this is a common sense answer. Maybe we're talking about our communications and the lack of communications. And I'm like, well, why don't we have cell phones that we use? Or why don't we have walkie-talkies that are ready and available at all times? Just common sense stuff like that we didn't have in place. I push. Actually, my manager here, his name's Kevin Rhodes. He's been awesome. He told me one day, he said, Steven, stop doubting yourself and just say it. He said, you know what you're talking about, just do it. And so I caught myself in some of those high level meetings where I'm like, hey, do we have cell phones or communications that are prepped and ready at all times? And they're like, no, we didn't think of that. That's an awesome idea. So it's just, it's that type of,
Yeah.
when I say common sense, it's that type of stuff. I don't feel like I'm overthinking things. To me, it seems like a common sense approach. But once you get to such a high level and you're looking at things with a microscope, I feel like sometimes we just need to zoom out
Yeah.
and ask the simple question and make sure we're doing the simple things. And then from there, we need to capitalize and do a little more digging there. The common sense questions are really, uh, I think I've kind of established myself here at university. I just tell people, hey, hold up, let's take a bird's eye view at this and just think about it from that approach. And um, I've had a good response from it from our people here at this facility, and it's I don't know. I tell my guys all the time, common sense ain't too common.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, you're right. You're right.
I think just sometimes just asking those simple questions and letting everybody's thought process go from there. A lot of times we yield very good results when we just start simple.
Yeah. And as you were talking, I think maybe part of the reason we can't always get to the common sense, and you just said this, is stop and sometimes take a look at the big picture. But everybody, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a director, whether you're like, everything has to be faster. And we've increased so many, like whether it's construction or infrastructure or getting a new software, like everything's got to be faster, faster, faster. And I think you lose the ability sometimes to take that step back and ask, why are we doing this? Or see the big picture, because everybody's under so much pressure to get things done. And sometimes that's counterintuitive to getting them done correctly.
Oh yeah, man, you hit it. That's exactly right. So you see that, I see it all the time. And that's exactly right. The systems the way we work nowadays is hurry, hurry, hurry.
Yep.
Let's get as much results as we can. And then we look back and we identify, oh, there were gaps here and there were gaps here. We should have done this. And a lot of this is in what we do from a facilities perspective here in Methodist Le Bonheur is we try to slow it down and just capture everything we can on the front end. And we have to be, from a facilities perspective, I feel like we have to be the one with the level head because a lot of people want to really drive their part of it. Maybe it's a cardiac surgeon and they really want to drive their portion of it, right? Or maybe it's your quality person who works in they want to drive just the quality. And we have to be the voice of reason that says, hold up, let's slow down and capture everything in one slow moving trajectory. And I think the hardest part of that is getting everyone to buy into it and trust your process with that. And that's not easy to accomplish, especially in a large facility with a lot of people who have a lot of opinions and thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to get everybody to just get on one page. And I feel like that's our role more than anything, is to make everybody understand that we're in this as an effort. This is a group effort. And at the end, when it's all said and done, the more we collaborate now, the better outcomes we'll have at the end.
Was that difficult to institute, to instill that what you just described there? Because especially coming in as a new guy, if that wasn't the culture, was it tough to establish that as a culture?
Maybe I have a different response than most, but I had a lot of administrative support. The CEO that we had here at our facility, he hired me, and we were a lot alike. We thought a lot alike, so he had my back. So if I would run a lot through him, and if he understood and agreed, then nobody really questioned it because they knew we were in one accord together. So I was just fortunate because I was in good standing with our CEO, and we saw a lot of things in the same light. So I didn't have as much trouble. I questioned myself more than others questioned our processes. And that's where I say that, like you said, as a young guy coming in to a new facility that I felt like I had no business being here,
Yeah.
That was tough for me to overcome. But once I got to the part that I felt like, man, I've got administrative support. We can really make some changes and improvements here. Things really went smooth thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, you you're at a big place and relatively, you've been there for a while now, what, like 3 years, but coming into healthcare, that's a big jump. We used to do, and it's all out the window now because people turn over so quickly, and the average stay can be 1 or 2 years now. But like, when I was doing just the straight recruiting, there was always kind of like a career progression that you would see, especially for folks who were new coming into healthcare. And maybe, and this is very arbitrary, but you'd say, from zero square footage up to 200,000 square feet. And then 200,000 square feet up to like 750,000 square feet. And then 750 up to 1.5 million. And then 1.5 million. Again, it's rough but you jumped right into the big league, the big leagues.
Yeah, I came from about a 200,000 square foot facility
Yeah.
in Amory, Mississippi, which was a great start for me. And I learned a lot there in my first year there. I worked there for a little less than a year before I
Wow.
accepted a position in Memphis. And that's where I say, you come into Memphis, you come from a 200,000 square foot facility into a million, 1.8 million in just healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's where to me, I think it's so important as a young guy coming into our field to just, I remember when I interviewed, they said, what are you going to change in your first 6 months? I said, nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm going to sit back for 6 months and watch
Good
and
answer.
observe and try to learn, and that's exactly what I did when I got here and was able to just kind of see what technicians are good at what and what processes are working, what processes are broken. And I think that that was paramount coming into a new facility because a young guy with little experience, there was no reason for me to come in here and try to make changes. I had to learn
Yeah.
before I started trying to make any changes. And I think without doing that, I wouldn't have gained the respect of our team. So, and then second to that, I absolutely love to work. Like I love it. So I wanted to get in there and work with tools. That's what I've done my whole life. And
Yeah.
so they had to kind of take that out of my hands and tell me, no, you can't do that anymore. It's not your job. But,
Right.
but I would still sneak off on a Friday afternoon and go with the guys and kind of work with them a little bit. So to let them know that I know what they're doing, I know what they're going through, and I'm here to support you and give you the things you need to be successful. I think that helped gain the respect of our team, and that's when you're coming in as a young guy in a big facility, you gotta have a good team behind you.
Yeah. Well, and especially I'd assume probably you probably have some guys on that staff who have been working in that hospital maybe 25 plus years, 30 plus years, and you know what, you don't gain their respect overnight,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's
And
exactly
that's
right.
tough.
I probably got mm, 8 or 10 that have been here longer than I've been alive. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah, that's a tough dynamic to manage. But like you said, earning that respect was paramount for me coming in, and man, the guys have responded great, and I respect them so much too because they've taught me along the way. They've not just done their job, but they've taken time out to teach me portions of their job that I never would have known if I hadn't had them around.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the network. And more importantly, share it with your colleagues in the healthcare industry. Together, we can solve the aging crisis that's impacting all of us.
There is no shortcut. Like, it's just you earn respect by people over time because they see how you operate. That you can't, that doesn't happen in a day, it doesn't happen in a week. But, as listening to you speak, I think two of the things that can make that happen a little more quickly is what you did. Number one, not coming in showing you're the boss, just make change for change's sake, because there are people who do that. But then number two, a willingness to go out in the field. They know you've done their job before and you'll accompany them out there. Those are two things that can definitely shorten that road to respectability if you're able to
Yeah.
pull them off.
No, I agree completely. My guys, they make fun of me. They know I want to be out there working, so they give me a hard time about it. But at the same time, we do a lot of rounding here at our facility. We set up where we started rounding once a week, and we go all over the facility. And our vendors know we're out and we're looking. Our guys that work for us know that we're out and we're looking.
Yeah.
We take photos and we mark those photos up and we send them out to, clinical leaders. We send them out to our team and we say, hey, here's what we found today. Here's some of the trends we continue to see from week to week, and we share that every week. And our whole staff here has become accustomed to it. They know, we better not just leave that halfway done because they're probably going to walk by next week. They're probably going to see it. So you create a standard and a culture there. But my goal was not to just make it not just a standard for my team, but let it be a culture for our entire system, so that everyone in the facility knows that we're out and about and we're here and we're available if you need us. And we see a lot of things that we can prevent, from parking a med cart in front of a fire extinguisher or propping open fire doors. We're able to send those educational emails out with all those pictures and photos weekly, and we send it to the clinical leaders to say, hey, look, we're trying to help you share this in your huddles with your team so that when we get time for D&B survey, we already know this stuff. We're building a culture where we won't do that, without knowing. So, and we pushed it a step further. We started including all that in our environment of care rounds and our environment of care meetings. So we capture all the pictures and things that we do. We capture those in our environment of care meeting, and we go over them at the end of our environment of care. And we include that in our quality minutes to show that we're talking about these things each week. And part of our quality initiatives are to work on these things and the trends that we're finding each week in these rounds. So that's been a good culture trend for us, and we hope to continue to expand on that, make it more interdisciplinary. Right now we've got security and EVS and infection prevention going with us. We've just started getting some of the clinical leaders going with us on those rounds. So it's growing into what it needs to be for it to really improve the culture of our facility and our environment of care for our patients and our staff.
Well, I'll tell you, not just because you're sitting here or you're sitting there and I'm sitting here, 1,000 miles, you sound like you've been doing this a long time. You really do. And this next question kind of goes along with that. So I was talking to a director, an executive director, and he was, we were talking kind of like generational differences. He's been a leader for a while and a very good one, but he was like, he's trying to get his younger staff comfortable. He's a great mentor, and he's not one of those people who's like this. He's more like, he's a teacher, he's an educator, and he's trying to get his younger staff comfortable saying, I don't know, right? Because we don't always know the answers. I mean, nobody can know. And try to explain, it's okay to say, I don't know. And obviously you go out and you find the answer and get them comfortable, because people think they always need to have that answer. Now you're coming in as a director of FM, like you said, you're sitting at the table with these executives who have been in healthcare probably many more years than you had. You're supposed to have, the image we have is the director always has the answers. How did you, were you comfortable saying, I don't know? And how did you approach that?
Yeah. I refuse to give someone just what they want to hear. I can't do it. It's not part of my being. I wasn't raised that way. So no, it doesn't bother me to say, hey, not real sure on that, but let me follow up.
Yeah.
And that's one thing to me that's important. Is I think I hear that a lot, but I hear that and people hear that from me a lot. But the biggest part of that is actually following up.
Yeah.
And with valuable information, not just, hey, I followed up and not real sure about it. That to me, those are broken promises. If I'm going to follow up with you, I'm going to follow up with either code or data or something, a process that says, hey, here's the next step. Here's where we need to go. This may not be the exact answer, but this is going to lead us where we need to go. And I think follow up is everything. Nothing wrong with saying you don't know. I tell our guys all the time, and I live by this. I was at the Tennessee Healthcare Engineering Conference yesterday. I have been for the first part of the week, and I told a guy yesterday, I said, look, man, that networking that you do at those conferences and everything, it goes back to it. I tell everybody all the time, you don't have to know it all. You just know who to call.
Right.
And that's true. And everything that we do, because of the Tennessee Healthcare Engineering Conference and and the association in general, the American Society of Healthcare Engineers, that association. Um, as long as you're a part of those and active in those, you're usually one or two phone calls away from any answer that you need anywhere
Yeah.
in your hospital. So, just being able to know who to call, having those numbers in your phone and not being afraid to call and ask has been, that's the key to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you're very comfortable with who you are and what you're doing and how you're accomplishing it. I you talk about the like societies, Tennessee Engineering Society, ASHE. I'm heading down to the Florida Healthcare Engineers Conference next week. I think it's one of the things that separates this discipline. There's competition between the hospitals at the hospital level, because listen, people have to stay in business. But at the director level, within state, without a state, you guys are always willing to help somebody else out, whether it's you share a part that they might not have or you give them information. The thing that I think drives a lot of the folks in it that makes them good is they'll always help out a cohort. It doesn't matter. You could be at a rival hospital, right? And your CEOs could not stand each other, but at the director level, that doesn't exist. Camaraderie exists.
No, man, that's exactly true. I was talking with, I don't know if you know Mark Mokel. He works for Brightly Software, and me and him were actually, we met. We both are in the ASHE Leadership Institute. We'll be going to year 2 this year in Phoenix together. And he was telling me, he said, across America, I know I'm kind of isolated to the southeastern United States, but he travels all over the country, and he said the same thing. Across America, there's like a brotherhood.
Yeah.
If there's something you need, we love to share what we know or what information or what parts we have to
Yep.
help the other side. And I think it's all because we know we're all kind of fighting an uphill battle.
Yes.
Our jobs are people's problems. People don't call us just to say, "Man, you did a great job on this." They usually call us with a problem. So to be able to help, someone who's in the same position as you out, I think that just speaks to the type of people that work in healthcare facilities management
No,
and the brotherhood that kind of stretches across our country.
absolutely. I agree with you. Now you were a history teacher. I love history. What did you teach?
I taught history for 7th and 8th grade in my first year of education. Like I said, I was only a teacher for 2 years. So
Yep.
my first year of teaching, I was a 7th and 8th grade history teacher, taught U.S. history. And then I also taught special ed in my second year. I was a moderate to severe special ed teacher for the high school level. And that was, man, that was awesome. I really enjoyed the special education program that I was part of. Those kids, I have a soft spot for them.
Yeah.
Man, I used to joke with some of the guys I taught with and the coaches I coached with. I said, "Look, I just I just created the best lesson ever, and we learned so much. It was wonderful, And the kids were so engaged, and the next day it's like we started all over. It's like
Yeah.
we never did anything the day before, and that was kind of fresh, because it lets you realize that every day you gotta come prepared to really help these students engage to be engaged in their classwork. And it taught me to not just get comfortable with one steady lesson plan and just lay it out there for the kids and we do the same thing every day. You had to come ready to go every day to teach those kids and keep them engaged. And man, some of those kids, I see them now around town, or I'll be out in the mall or something, and someone like, hey, Coach A, and I'm like, who said that? And then it's been great. Education's always been a passion of mine. It's a passion of mine right now. So I'm working. I just reached out to someone from the University of Kentucky who has an educational program for facilities management technicians and managers there. And I have a pretty burning passion to build that type of program here in the Memphis, Tennessee area for healthcare facilities management.
Interesting. So yeah, it's funny when you were talking about that, you were teaching kids with in some cases profound disabilities. It's like healthcare, right? Like your day isn't your day when you go into the facility because you never know what you're going to get hit with. And probably somewhat similar in that type of an environment with kids who are challenged in that regard, right? I mean, you can schedule things,
Yeah.
but if it's a bad day for one of those children or whatever, your schedule is off kilter, right? So
That's
you're
exactly right.
constantly audibling, for the
Yeah,
coach.
and that's where I look back at it. I'm highly religious. I feel like God's been kind of preparing me for where I've landed, and maybe that was just a small portion of it
Yeah.
that you learn to just kind of be somewhat variable in
Yeah.
what you do, and always prepared for every little thing or things that could go wrong or may not go the way you plan. That taught me a lot about just being ready at all times.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, because your day's not your own, right?
That's right. That's
Are there
exactly right.
are there like do you ever take like in your role and it sounds like you're you also probably have a pretty good degree of emotional intelligence that you use or utilize. Do you ever take any like history lessons into your work, your FM world or lessons from history, things that went wrong, battles that went wrong that you kind of utilize? I do that a lot myself. Like I look at situations and I'll tie them back and I don't go around telling people about it, but I'm like, okay, this has happened before. This is where you can get through these things. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's more, like I said, I'm very highly religious. So a lot of times I spend 2 hours on the way home, and a lot of times I compare a lot of what happens to me in my day and different situations to more, historical things that happen in the Bible.
Hmm.
And I catch myself, drawing comparisons to those types of situations. So yeah, I do. I'm like you, probably do it more in the quiet when nobody's around, and it just something
Yeah.
crosses through my mind, and then someone calls, and I'm back on work duty again. So you just.
Yeah, your
Uh,
mind.
that's right. But yeah, I do that often. I compare it to different scenarios that happened in the past and biblically and it's just in history in general.
So, before my kids are older than yours. I don't maybe, I would often tell my kids some of these things, right? And as they get older, they're like, Dad, we've heard that before. We don't want to. So there's a shelf life, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. My kids hit me up with that this last week. They're like, Dad, you've told us 10 times. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah, yeah, that hurts.
It does. It does, especially for me. I'm like, I'm not old enough for you to be telling me that yet, but
Just wait,
apparently I am.
just wait. Are you with your staff? Are you guys appropriately staffed? How many staff members do you have for 1.7 million square feet?
Yeah, I don't think we're appropriately staffed, but we manage what we have very well. We got 36 staff members
Oh
here,
wow,
which
damn,
is,
yeah,
yeah, it's really low. I
yeah.
think industry standard is somewhere between 40 and 50,000 square feet per technician, and we're pushing, over 100,000.
Yeah,
Uh,
and
they're all of our campus. So
you always look at those square footages, and there's so many variables that you can take into account, age of facility and roles and responsibilities. But however you cut that one, like 36 for 1.7, that's a little low. But my question wasn't necessarily for that. But I was going to ask, you like education, you're a your background. It sounds like you're constantly learning. Do you try to provide your staff with those opportunities, and do you find time to do succession planning or staff growth activities? Can you talk a little about that?
yeah. So matter of fact, we've got an education that's coming up Monday. We've got our nurse call vendor that sets up Rolland and our Rolland responder nurse call system, and they're going to come in on Monday, and we're going to have a lot of our younger guys on second and third shift come in, and they're going to spend about 5 or 6 hours Monday just gaining some education on that. And I try to challenge our guys, especially our younger ones, that we need to be, really hungry and learning and reaching out and learn, striving for more. I try to let them know like this is a field that you can really grow and develop it. Make yourself a valuable resource in something. If it's nurse call, if it's med air, med gas systems, or if it's boilers and chillers, whatever it is, pick you something and make it to where we can't make it without you in that field. So we've got 2 or 3 guys that we've already told them, hey, look, nurse call class is coming up Monday. We really want you to pour into this. We need you to soak up as much as possible. And I think that's what maybe I'm wrong, and I guess I'll see that over the next few years is, but I try to let these guys know, hey man, there's not a lot of people your age who are diving into healthcare right now, who are diving off into all these different things that you can learn, and you've got a really, really wild opportunity to
Yeah,
be one of the very few in the next 5 to 10 years. So
yeah,
if you can just work hard and learn a lot, be willing to learn and work hard, the possibilities are endless in healthcare. And I think for the young guys, I think that's how we keep them moving, is because they want to know they have the opportunity to grow, or they want to know they have opportunities to make their career become something more than what it, do just a job, and I think that's how I try to approach it. Because I know for me personally, when I entered healthcare, I thought, oh, I'm going to be working in a nursing home as a maintenance man. That's a retirement job. It'll all be good,
Yeah.
and then I got in and I realized how many different avenues there are in the healthcare world that you can go and just be, you can continue to grow and grow and grow. And I try to preach that to all of our people. Like, where you're at now is only the beginning if you can just stay the course, if you just listen to us and let us help you. So, like I said, I have a burning passion for education. I love, uh, I mean, it's maybe biased. It's probably very biased, really, but I love my story. I feel like my path into healthcare has been awesome, and I want that for every young guy I see that comes in here. I want them to understand that 7 years ago, I never. The only time I went to the hospital was if someone was sick. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't take long to get where you're going if you just work hard and you devote yourself to it. And I want to share that with all the young guys on our team. I want them to understand it. Heck, the guys my age, I want them to know, like, there's no limit to where you can go in healthcare if you want it. And you know, that's an education that's never stopping
Yeah.
for me, at least.
No, you're right. I mean, it's a very compelling message, because you're right. It's a people problem. There's not enough, right? And so if you're willing to learn, there's that opportunity. That's part of the reason we started this network 2 years ago, is just to kind of promote that it's out there, because the competition is stiff, right? And it's you got to find and locate it. It's kind of the irony of a hospital, right? You said until 7 years ago, the only time you went to the hospital when you were sick. Like, we all go to hospitals throughout our life, yet how many people know this role exists? I mean, before I started doing, I had no idea, but you're always in a hospital. There's always these roles, but you don't know they're there. There's doctors, there's clinicians, there's
Mm-hmm.
EVS workers. You see all those folks when you're there, but you
Yeah.
don't see the guys like you and the ladies like you. They're kind of down below or just doing their work.
Yeah. I tell our guys all the time, like, if nobody knows we're here, then we're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And that's the truth in what we do. But a lot of people mistake, like you said, exactly like you said, a lot of people mistake healthcare facilities management as light bulbs and toilets. That's all we do: change light bulbs and unstop toilets. And to be honest with you, 7 or 8 years ago, when I was getting into healthcare, I thought the same thing. I thought, man, this is a retirement job. I'm gonna sit back and it's gonna be easy. And boy, was I wrong. But you know, like you said, nobody really sees what we do. I felt like that was I mean, that was a pain point for me. I want everybody to know what we do, because it's impressive what our guys are able to accomplish and how well they do it. This last year for Healthcare Facilities Week, we did tours, and we took healthcare. We took our executives for the organization and here for our campus, and nurses and therapists and surgeons, anyone who wanted to go. We offered tours through our mechanical spaces to show them the med air. What's how we do what we do to make the med air stay in, working all the time. The generators,
Yeah.
the automatic transfer switches, all the air handlers, and just give them an opportunity to see some of the things that our guys do. And I think that really empowered our team, because now people know what they do and how impressive it is, and the skill sets that go along with it. We're not just there to patch and paint something,
Right.
which is a job in itself. Not to take anything away from our painters,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of skill that goes into it that people don't realize, and I want to showcase that. So
Right.
we're going to start doing that every year, for Healthcare Facilities Week. And what I'd like to be able to do is let our guys start giving those tours, rather than me. Let our guys do it, so that they'll be able to, showcase their knowledge as they go through there as well.
What kind of a reply did you get as far as people taking you up on the offer?
We had a system CEO came, the CEO of our campus here came, our assistant chief nursing officer came, several nurses came, and some of our administrative assistants, some of our admission staff. So it wasn't the response I wanted. Obviously, I'd like to have people lined up,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people who did it this year were really impressed by it, and they talked about it a lot. and we publicized it on our website and on our throughout our Methodist network. So I'm hoping that'll grow, and that we can really start to grow on that and showcase our talents, our
Yeah.
skills.
Well, you talk about the painter, and obviously you're not taking anything away from the painter, but people don't realize that behind that hopefully non-nicked beautiful paint that's on a wall, there's a whole world that exists behind that wall and behind that paint, and that's what you guys keep going.
Yeah, that's right.
You
That's
know?
exactly. Right. And for our paint team here, we built a big new beautiful tower before I started here. We call it Shore Tower, and it's beautiful, but it's solid white. Everything in it's white. So our painters are just like, man, why did we pick white? All we do all day is just go around and touch up. So our painters we have a really good paint team here, and they go around and do a good job. But like I said, there's just a lot to take care of.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. So we are talking to Steven Atkins. Steven's the director of facilities management at Methodist La Bonheur. No, help me out.
The Bonner.
La Bonheur. I told you, there's a block, but I can say Memphis and I can say Tennessee. Those are easy to say. So as you come in, as you're 7 years in, you're 3 years there with your kind of varied experience that you've had. As you look at your healthcare career, was there anything, or is there anything that was like an aha moment for you, or was surprising to you as you've kind of advanced quickly? Was there anything about this career that you realized that you didn't necessarily know going into it? Kind of like an aha.
Yeah. Real quickly, I learned that there's lots of codes.
Huh.
There's NFPA 101. There's NFPA 99. There's lots of codes that dictate what we have to do, why we have to do it, and all of that is handed down by CMS, which CMS is the one who basically that's who pays the hospitals, right?
Yeah.
So without CMS tells us what codes we have to adhere to, and I learned really quickly that you got to know those codes, and you don't have to know them, but you need to know how to find them, and you need to know how to dig through the code books to find answers, and I think early in my career, I got the through NFPA, there was a certified life safety specialist certification. I got that, and that essentially taught me how to read through code and find answers and get the information needed to come to the conclusions we need in our world of healthcare. And getting that helped me a lot. And then I learned that there was a CHFM, the Certified Healthcare Facility Manager. That's all about code and knowing the things that are required for us from a facility standpoint. So it was code first, and then it was some of these certifications that said this guy knows how to find the answer to these questions. And those two certifications, I think, kind of throttled my career to where I'm at. Without those certifications, it's hard to get into a management role. And I think I would have gotten there one way or the other, but the certifications definitely sped up that process.
Yeah. Did you have, you talked about, you can always make a phone call, one or two people away from somebody answering, involved in the Tennessee Healthcare Association. But, coming in, and it sounds like you read the books and all, but did you have anybody else to help you help mentor you relative to the risk and the compliance and learning that
Yes.
you're a DNV hospital, right? You said, but did you have anybody help you along the way, or was it kind of self-learning and then you start to meet people and you were able to advance your knowledge more quickly?
There was some initial self-learning there, but it was more of just taking care of things at the beginning. When I got into the nursing home or skilled nursing facility, I got into emergency management for my facility there, and I went to emergency management coalition meetings, and I met a guy named Jason Lee. Jason Lee was the facility director at North Mississippi Medical Center when I was in that area. He works at Cook's Children's Hospital in Houston, maybe. So he poured into me early and often. He said, "Hey man, I'm gonna get you a job in the healthcare world one day. You need to come work for the hospital." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, let me know when you have a job." And he kind of introduced me to life safety code and said, "Look, this is your first step. You got to learn this." And I did. That I wasn't working at the hospital then, but
Right.
Jason, no doubt, was the single most imperative part of my growth in healthcare. So he helped me kind of get to where I'm at. Once I got to Memphis, there's a guy named Jerry Ferguson. He's a long time. He used to be the president of the Tennessee Healthcare Association, and he's a wealth of knowledge, and he poured into me once I got here in Memphis. So having those two people their influence on my career, I question whether I would even be in
Interesting.
healthcare anymore if it wasn't for those two guys, what they've done for me.
Wow, that's awesome. So, Steven Atkins, last question. This hour kind of flew by. I enjoyed our conversation. Now, don't take this question the wrong way. I'm putting my recruiting hat back on for a sec, right? Although I'm not doing business development, I still love the recruiting and the career stuff. And we've mentioned this, but what do you think they saw in you? Because you made a big leap. So obviously you trusted yourself, right? You have self-confidence, which you need that. But what do you think they saw in you to offer you that leap? Because I mean, be honest, like in the recruiting world, there would be some organizations that would say, this person doesn't have the experience I'm looking for, yet they did. Do you any idea why or how did you convince them?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. How did you convince? That's
No,
really terrible. But you know what I mean.
I
I
totally
mean it in a
understand.
complimentary way. I'm trying to dig myself out of a hole, but no holes
No,
intended.
no, I think Jason initially when I worked for him, I was a young guy in the healthcare world who didn't know a whole lot, but I wasn't
Yeah,
scared to speak up and kind of say, hey, that goes back to that common sense part. I'm sitting in a room full of healthcare executives who've been talking about emergency management for years, and I wasn't scared to just say, hey, are we thinking about this? Have we tried this? And I think Jason probably saw that, and
yeah,
from there he wanted to pour in. But outside of that, I think myself included now, I've learned is if you find somebody who's hungry and wants to learn and has the ability to learn, those are the people you need to latch on to. And I think I try to exude that even today. There's one thing about healthcare is it keeps you humble. That at no point in healthcare facilities management do you know it all, and
yeah,
you're just ready to go. And I don't see there's a way where you can get cocky in what we do. Because it's a new thing every day. So
yeah.
finding somebody who is young or not necessarily young, but has the ability to learn and is willing to put in the work, those are the kind of people I would look for, and I think that's what Jerry Ferguson saw in me. And I hope I've proved him right. It's even today, I question whether or not I'm doing all the things right or if I'm doing
Yeah.
as much as I can do. So, it's you're just looking for people who work hard and are willing to learn. And I hope that's what they saw in me, and I hope I can continue to share that, and make people feel that way in my future as well. I'm not done, so I got a lot more that I want to accomplish. I tell people all the time I'm ambitious to a fault. It's to a point that I sometimes I need to just say no, and be content. But there's a lot to gain in what we do, and there's a lot of opportunities for improvement. And I'm just proud someone gave me a shot, and forever thankful for Jerry Ferguson and what he's done for me here in Memphis. And you know, healthcare has been a blessing all the way around for me. So,
I think that's that's one of the ways to get out of this employee deficit that we're in, what you just described, somebody who, will work hard, willing to learn, willing to listen, kind of those intangibles that you're not going to see on a resume, or it's not going to say that on a resume because you don't know that, right? I mean, you can write it, but you can't measure that. You can only see it by working with people and giving somebody a chance and mentoring them.
that's right. Yeah, I see inadequacies in the healthcare sector from facilities management and the way we hire those people. I
Mm,
think uh, there's so many requirements for degrees and
yeah,
certifications and this, that, and the other. And to be honest, if someone hadn't taken a chance on me, I wouldn't have any of those either. So I could still do the work I'm doing today, but I wouldn't have those certifications if someone didn't have those have the foresight to be able to just invest in me. And I
right.
think that's why I'm so passionate. Is because I see that in so many people,
Yeah.
and I want them to have that opportunity as well, and I want them to know that they have that opportunity.
Yep.
And I don't see a program out there that's just a bona fide, hey, here's your way to get into that. And when I'm out pitching healthcare, trying to hire people or trying to get people into our field, the one thing I use all the time is that when COVID came or when do you want job security? There is nothing, not a single job in America that's more secure than healthcare facilities management because it's not going away.
Right.
Healthcare, facilities will shut down if we're not doing our job. So, and healthcare is not going away. People will always need it. And I know there's advancements and things that can change and improve it, but for us, it's such a consistent job.
Yeah.
That we just need to create a platform where we're building a pipeline of people into this. My facility now has a school of radiology. Methodist has Methodist Le Bonheur has their own school of radiology. Baptist Hospital across town, they have their own nursing school. So it's crazy to me that here in the Memphis area, I think we've got 8 or 9 hospitals in this small, what we call our medical district of Memphis. It's crazy to me that we're not starting or talking about or trying to develop some sort of pipeline to keep these hospitals running for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We've got to start building professionals that can support and keep these systems running effectively. And I have a passion to do that. I've reached out to the University of Memphis and working with a couple of people from the University of Kentucky who already have somewhat of a program. So I have a burning passion to develop that program. I would use any platform I could to say, if you know anything about it, let me know. I want to dive into it and see what our avenues are so that we can give more people the same opportunity that I've had.
Steven, I cannot say anything better than what you just said. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for appearing. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for sending that email to me. I enjoyed our conversation. You sound like you've been doing this for 20 plus years. So great job.
No, thanks a lot. I appreciate you letting me be on. Like I said, I've learned a lot from your show and listening to the different people and the different avenues and the way they talk. And your show's been instrumental in my success as well.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. And I love hearing those stories because it's all these unique stories that we got to get people in here. So my guest was Steven Atkins, Director of Facilities Management, Methodist Le Bonheur Hospital. That'll work. Memphis, Tennessee. Steven, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching the Healthcare Facilities Network. We'll be back with another great guest like Steven in the near future. Have a great day.
If you want to be a guest on a future episode of the Healthcare Facilities Network, go to healthcarefacilitiesnetwork.com and let us know who you are and what you want to talk about, because together we can solve this critical aging issue.